welcome back. We're going to get into our deep dive today, and Brock was gracious enough to stick around, and we are going to pick his brain on the tried and true RatLTrap. We know it from coast to coast, north to south. Everybody's got a trap or two in their box. Brock's figured out how to make a lot more money with them than us, so we're going to do a deep dive into it and talk with him. Vance, I know you and Brock have shot some stuff and worked together talking RatLTraps, and you've got to see it in action. So why don't you guys talk fishing, and I'll just make sure I get it recorded for a second.
10-4. Hey, Brock, appreciate you taking some time to share your knowledge on, man, one of the greatest old school techniques ever, the Bill Lewis RatLTrap. You won some money on that deal. What has that lure, especially, and that technique, what has that meant to you and your career over the years, and how did you become an aficionado of it?
You know, the RatLTrap, like you said, is old school, and it really goes back to the pond fishing days when I was a kid. I mean, you want to catch a bunch of fish in a pond, you tie on a 1/4 ounce RatLTrap. I mean, that'll catch every fish in there in a lot of cases. For me, it was, and it was always one of them confidence deals from a young age. And I just kind of took it with me as I progressed and into my career. And, I've gotten top 10s on the 1/4 ounce RatLTrap a couple of years ago on Fort Loudon, fishing water temp that was in the low to mid 40s. And I still found fish that were on a shallow 2-foot flat, and they were just choking a 1/4 ounce RatLTrap. So it was one of them events that was real tough on a lot of people. And I was able just to kind of do my thing and still catch a lot of quite a few fish on just downsizing to a 1/4 ounce trap. I mean, it's just one of them things. Like I said, it's a big confidence thing for me. And that's one thing you got to have is when you fish, on a higher level is confidence in what you're doing. And the RatLTrap has always been a big player of mine.
So if I'm hearing you, there's times when people will downshift all the way to finesse techniques, but you could just, throw that 1/4 ounce trap and still be efficient and cover water, maybe when other guys have slowed down or something. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's like I said, that one tournament at Fort Loudon several years ago, I mean, the water temp was, 42 to 46, and they were still eating that RatLTrap. And I was just able to really just kind of slow roll it, not doing anything special. And all of a sudden my rod would just load up and be a good solid keeper on there.
Now, Fort Loudon, not known for having a lot of grass. Was that a grass bite, or is that just we on rocks, or what are we targeting there? Because most people associate a trap with grass like peanut butter and jelly,
Yeah, it's totally not just a grass bait. Then it was on a shallow flat, and I actually kind of go back to my Tennessee River days. It kind of looked like a place on Kentucky Lake in the fall. In the fall, those fish were push those bait up real shallow in the back of the bays or on the flats, as shallow as they could get. And it was kind of the same ordeal. I mean, the only reason I found them is because I seen shad in the distance, kind of flickering on the surface way back in the back of this bay. And I just went back there and matched the hatch with that 1/4 ounce trap. But no, you don't just, it's the RatLTrap's not just a grass deal. When it's time for me to cover water, whether it's shallow clay flats or rock banks, I always have a RatLTrap tied on. Now I may have to kind of mess with my retrieve a little bit. There's times where I've caught them, on 3/4 inch, a 45-degree angle bank, just kind of just yo-yoing my trap back to the boat real slowly. I kind of pull up, let it go to the bottom, pull it back up all the way back to the boat. It's just one of them deals where you have to play with your retrieve a little bit, but I've caught them in all types of, situations, whether it's rock bank, clay flats, grass, you name it. So it's a real versatile bait. It's not just made for grass.
So versatile, we're talking about around the calendar then, because, a lot of people just, as they associate it as a grass lure, they also think of it as a great pre-spawn lure, which it is. And then when the fish come back off the beds, you still fish it, and throughout the summer into the fall. I mean, how versatile is a trap?
As soon as the fish are done spawning, usually you have the shad spawn, and a a lot of lakes around here. I mean, that, the trap emphasizes those bait fish perfectly. Luckily, they make, several different sizes where you can use a 1/4 ounce, you can use a half, a 3/4, whatever you got to use to kind of match the hatch. But, as soon as the fish get through spawning, they get in that shad spawn. I throw it a lot during the shad spawn. You get in the early summer months, I've caught them, on their first stop headed back to the deep ledges, on a 3/4 ounce trap. It's one of my favorite fall baits. When we get in that true October fall mode, it's fall, it takes October for us. It's still almost 90 degrees here every day right now. When those fish start moving in the back of the bays, like I was talking about earlier on Kentucky Lake and, Pickwick, those type of places, it's a great way for me to cover a lot of water and find those fish when the fishing stuff in the wintertime. I mean, that's, to me, is one of my favorite times to throw. It's in the wintertime when everybody, it's famous, the red rattle traps. That's from wintertime into the pre-spawn. Everybody loves throwing a red rattle trap. So it's a really versatile year-round bait.
So as I go through the different seasons, go through the different models, what should I think about in terms of rod action, type of line I'm using, gear ratio? Does your setup change as you go through the seasons, or you've just kind of pretty much rock and roll with 14-pound fluorocarbon and a 7-to-1 gear ratio, or what do you do with your gear there?
It really depends what I'm fishing. When I'm fishing grass, there's times where if I'm fishing, the Harris chain and a bed of hydrilla, there's times where I want 20-pound line on it, on a medium, a medium heavy rod. So I got enough backbone to yank it out of the grass, and yet I ain't got to worry about my line snapping. And then there's times where, if I'm throwing a 1/4 ounce trap, I've got it on 12-pound line on a little cranking rod that's flimsy enough because the bite is that subtle. So it's one of them where I kind of have to, whatever I'm fishing, like I said, that's what I kind of go with my setups. I change my setups on my traps a pretty good bit.
Mm-hmm.
Brock, I got a question regarding retrieve speed. When you talk about winter, I know we've got some late fall fishing. Water temperatures will get into the 50s, but you mentioned some stuff all the way down into the 40s. Talk to us a little bit about that winter or cold water setup, because I don't think a lot of our anglers think about a trap in those conditions. How are you fishing it? Is that kind of crawling the bottom, ticking it, fluttering? Tell me a little bit about how to catch them in real cold water on a trap.
There's a lot of people think that a rattle trap is made to be just burning it as fast as you can. And that's not necessarily the case. The colder the water gets, especially once you get to me, the magic number is like 48 degrees. Once you get below 48, you kind of have to get a little finessey with them. But, there's times where I just, when that water gets cold, even from 55 down, I'll sit there and play with my retrieves. I'll slow it up, whether I'm just slowly yo-yoing it up, just barely kind of just using my rod tip to pull the bait along.
Or you feel you're probably feeling it though, right? I mean, you can like that enough that you're getting some action, but not a lot.
I'm not snatching it. I'm just kind of easing it up and using my rod tip to move the bait along. And then there's times where, I'm just a steady, slow retrieve where I'm just feeling it, like you said, kind of tick the bottom. That's one of them deals where you just kind of have to let the fish tell you how they want it. That's the beauty of this sport, is every day the fish are in a different mood and you have to figure them out. So you really have to when that water gets cold, you have to let the fish kind of tell you how they want that bait.
Now, what about too? I think over the years, RatLTrap's done some different versions with different sounds. Yeah. I know there's some competitor one knocker type things and stuff like that, but I think Bill has some different sounds as well as a floating variety, if I'm not mistaken. Where do some of them other different traps come into play? Or have you noticed anything with sound?
There's guys that like the knocking traps, that they have. There's guys that like the floating traps. Me, I'm the original. I absolutely love the original. Now they come out with one at ICAST that I did a content shoot with this past week. That is the hammer trap. and I fell in love with that bait. Of course, we were catching a bunch of fish. So it was when you're catching a bunch of fish, your confidence just rises. But that new hammer trap is the real deal. But, it goes back to the whole confidence thing. It's whatever you got confidence in and what you feel like those fish may want that day.
Trap, is that something sound based or is that something different in the vibration? Or are you at liberty to discuss yet?
It's a little bit different design, as far as shape and it's sound. It's a little bit of everything, but they will be available here in December, and we can talk more about it when they come out.
Uh-oh, somebody's under an embargo, so maybe we like the scoop, man. We appreciate knowing it's coming.
Yeah, man.
What about mods? Any mods that our viewers can do to a rattle trap, or is it just take it out of the box and let her rip?
It's one of the few baits where there's no tuning. You just can take it out, tie it on, and go to slinging it. Now, I will say, about 15 years ago, along with everybody else, I used to love putting a red hook on the front, but those days have kind of passed. It seems like for everybody, you don't really see anybody doing that anymore. But that's just one of the baits that, like I said, you just take it out of the box, tie it on, and go slinging around, and just let the fish tell you how they want it.
Now, I know it comes with quality hardware anyway, being a build this product, but when you wear out that first set of hooks, do you have a preferred replacement treble for that, your traps?
I'm a Trocar guy. I Trocar makes the sharpest hooks. I got holes all in my hands to prove it. But I like you said, when I'm fishing around rocks and stuff where I'm beating it off the bottom, I keep an eye on my hooks. Rocks will dull your hooks up. But if I'm worried about, fishing grass, unless I just have one of them traps where I've caught probably 50 on it in the last 3 or 4 days, I don't really concerned about my hooks unless I've been one taking it out. But if you're fishing hardcover, you got to keep an eye on your hooks.
10-4. That, and make sure that line stays, I guess, check your line frequently. Do you have to retie off when you're fishing around? I mean, I guess that depends on the size of the line you're using too, right?
Yeah, it does. And I mean, if I'm in Florida where I'm catching a bunch of pike or pickerels, and I'm always retying. None of us want to lose our favorite bait that we catching 20 fish a day on. There's something about that one bait that we've caught a bunch on. We don't want to lose it, and so keep an eye on your line. I always just kind of, after I catch one, I kind of rub my hands up the line just to check everything out, but and check my hooks, and then I'll go back to slinging around. So just kind of pay attention to that with anything you're throwing. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, keep an eye on everything.
In terms of color selection and stuff, I'd say about everybody has some version of a red rattle trap in their box. We all probably have thrown chrome blue, chrome black at some point through childhood to adulthood. Give me your top 3 colors, Brock. What 3 colors would you recommend somebody have in their box at all times?
I'm not one that gets real fancy on colors. And I heard Gerald Swindle say there's only about 3 colors and solid plastics. Well, I'm kind of the same way with hard baits. You hit it a nail on the head, your Raven Reds. That's going to be by far the most popular early in the springtime, your winter months and springtime. My all-time favorite is the chrome blueback. It just goes back to my pond days. I think I can catch a fish anywhere in the country on a chrome blueback rattle trap. And then, if I don't like the chrome, I'll just go to my shad colors. But I don't get real fancy with it. I don't overthink it. When it's a little colder, water's 60 degrees or below, or I'm throwing red, and then all the rest of the time I'm throwing chrome blueback.
There you go. There's a nugget for the listeners. Below 60 and you're red, and above it and you're feeding them chrome, and I'm sure you've got some like me too. The paint's about half beat off some of them chrome ones, and they seem to do just fine too, with a little bone showing through, don't they?
Absolutely. I got a lot that's got covered in teeth marks and been beat off of rocks and docks and everything else, missing all the paint, but they still catch fish.
There you go, man. Well, look, we're heading into fall fishing. I know a trap will be part of that for us. I think I might slow mine down a little bit as the water cools down and see what we can do with that. But Vance, got anything you want to dig out of there before we cut Brock loose? I know he's a busy man farming these days, but see if you can pull one more nugget out of him. I got the colors.
Well, I'm thinking it's just pretty much like Brock says, it's just keep it simple, rock and roll, trusting the things that have always worked for you. That saying, you hate to beat the forward facing thing to death. Everybody's using that. Have you found a way to use a trap in conjunction with the new electronics?
I
Or is it,
actually,
we're just going down the
I
back?
actually caught a few this past week during that, during the deal I had to do with Bill Lewis this week on getting the content shoot. I caught 2 or 3 on live scope with a RatLTrap. It's just more or
Man.
less, it's of course it's like a video game. I mean, it's all it is. You see the fish, you just try to figure out how to get them to bite. So I'd pull it in front of them or yank it in front of them and they would react to it. So it's definitely a tool you can add to the box when you just come to live scoping.
Man, if you can't get a reaction with a trap, I mean, you need to go home. All right, that's great. That's
Yep.
great reaction, mate. Wow.
Yeah, it is.
Vance,
deal,
you dug
man.
it out there, so you heard it here first. He's working on a prototype forward-facing sonar rattle trap, and you got the scoop. So, man, you heard it here, folks.
That's what that hammer
First,
trap
folks.
is. He didn't want to say it, but that's what the hammer trap is. That's the deal, right?
Yep, I think so. I think we finally got it all out of him. But all this is unconfirmed, and Brock's denying it. So all speculation at this point. But in all seriousness, Brock, we know you're busy getting ready for things around the farm there, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate your tips on rattle traps, and congratulations, belated congratulations on getting that victory over at the Sabine, man. We're real happy for that, and we appreciate you sharing some of it with us.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Right on. Well, listen, folks, stick around. Vance and I are going to wrap this thing up, and